Good evening. Pastor Dan asked if I would share the part of the children's sermon that happened on Sunday, because it just ties in with what we're going to be doing later on. And so if you were here Sunday, you're going to get to hear this 2 times. So your soul must really need it, right? So on Sunday, I reminded the children, so I'm just going to have to envision you as children, if that's okay. That'll help me out. That our theme this week for Advent, the word is faith, and our visual is bread. And maybe you can even smell bread cooking, because Pastor Dan has been cooking a lot of bread today. And what I wanted the kids to realize is that throughout the book of John, whenever you hear the word faith, a lot of times he interchanged that word with believe. So when you hear the word faith, he would talk about that believing would be, you could just substitute those 2 words. Another word I asked the kids to consider with those 2 words, faith and believing, is gathering. And that's what I want to share with you tonight, is when we see bread, we see something that gives us sustenance and life. But bread wasn't always what the children of God ate. When Adam and Eve were in the garden, God told Adam and Eve, you can eat of any tree in the garden, except for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So there were just an abundance of food to eat. All they needed to do was gather. God did the work in creation, and their work was to gather what he had created, and then to maintain and go out and do the work God asked them to do. When sin came into the world, then he said, you will no longer be able to eat of the trees in the garden. You'll be out of the garden. And now you will eat by the sweat of your brow. And that's what I thought of when I thought of bread. I asked the kids the whole process of how to get this 1 loaf. And it wasn't just Pastor Dan putting yeast and flour in the oven and baking it. There's a whole process that went into making this loaf of bread. And Jesus, on that screen up there, that was taken from John chapter 6. And if you get a chance this week, I would encourage you to read that whole chapter about how he talks about him being the bread. That chapter starts out with feeding the fish and the loaves to the thousands of people. And then Jesus leaving that place and those people going and trying to find him and wanting more bread. And Jesus said, you're just seeking me because you want to fill your stomachs. He said, but he talked about filling their souls and saying that I am the bread. And then he talked about manna coming down from heaven in the Old Testament. So there were 2 times, well, there's many more, but there's 2 times I want to share that God, just like in the garden, did the work to provide. And one of those times was when the Israelites were in the wilderness and they didn't have anything to eat out there. And God said to trust him, and he provided bread from heaven called manna. The other time that I told the kids about was Bethlehem. And Bethlehem literally means, in Hebrew, house of bread. So Jesus said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. It is by the sweat of my brow that I will do the work in order to provide for you. Your job is to gather. The people in John chapter 6 said, well, Jesus, what can we do to be doing the works of God? And Jesus said, this is the work of God, that you believe in the one whom he has sent. That is the work of God. That this bread represents the sweat of the brow of God in providing exactly what we needed. And that our job is to have faith, believe, receive, gather. Just like in John 1, it says, to all who have received him, he gave them the right to become children of God. So I just pray that you would receive, gather the baby in the manger, this little loaf of bread, and remember that this little loaf of bread in the manger came to be broken. Emmanuel, God with us, God's work.
I did. I asked Tiffany if, there's my microphone. I was wondering where I did with it. I asked Tiffany if she would kind of share what you shared on Sunday, because I guess I've never. We don't think about Christmas in regards to the fact that this was God's opportunity to give to us. It's no longer us needing to give to Him. It's His giving to us. And so we were talking about the fact that we haven't had an opportunity to do communion this month. And when we knew the bread was coming, we decided, what a great symbol of Christ is a symbol of bread. And so in our discussion about how tonight was going to look and how we were going to do communion, we decided that as the little loaf represented Christ, we decided that we would create a loaf that would be more the size of an infant. And that as we share tonight in the receiving of the bread and the cup, we're going to share it recognizing that literally Christ was the bread that came that came so that we wouldn't have to gather, but He gave it to us. And so tonight we are going to share in the bread, and we're going to do it in a special way. What we're going to do is we're going to invite you to come and to receive the bread, not to eat it. Just come and receive the bread, and we're going to have you, my wife and Tiffany are going to lead you around, and we're going to have you follow. We're going to go all the way around the room. And then in the midst of going around the room, we're going to have you hold the bread, and then at the end moment, Katie and I will come and we will give you the opportunity to place your bread into the cup. Invitation for those of you who have forgotten. We're going to put the bread in the cup and eat it. Remember, the key to this tonight is the recognition that Jesus said, I am the bread of life. Jesus said, I have come to give you life. And to give you life, I needed to be broken. So as we receive the bread and cup tonight, I want to encourage you to recognize that what we're receiving is truly, in a real sense, remembering what Christ did to us. So, Jesus on the night He was betrayed took bread and He took it and He tore it in half and said, this is my body which is broken for you. Take, eat of this bread in remembrance that it was my body that feeds you. as we receive the bread and the cup, as we remember the gifts of your body that was broken, and you truly did become the bread of life. You truly did become that water that thirsts and quenches the thirst with an eternal sense to it. Lord, I pray that as we receive the bread and receive the cup, I pray, Father, we would remember 2,000 years ago, it wasn't just a little baby boy who was born into a manger. It was God. He chose to come to be a sacrifice so that we might be fed with eternal hope. Father, we thank you for your body that was broken and your blood that was shed. May we, Lord, tonight remember afresh and how much it cost you, so that we would no longer have to work and find your place, but rather we can gather with God. We honor you as we remember you in Christ's name. I'd like you to come and receive the bread, and as I say, hold it until you have gone around the circle, and then very easy, you'll bring the cup to you for attention.
Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. Here's my life, Lord. Here's my life, Lord. Here's my life, Lord. Speak what is true. I am found, I am yours, I am loved, I'm made pure, I have life, I can breathe, I am healed, I am free. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. You are strong, you are sure, you are light, you endure, you are good, always true, you are light, breaking through, you are more than enough, you are here, you are love, you are home, you are grace, you're all I have, you're everything. Oh, here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. Oh, here's my life, Lord. Here's my life, Lord. Here's my life, Lord. Speak what is true. Speak speak what is true. Oh, here's my life, Lord. Here's my life, Lord. Here's my life, Lord. Speak what is true. Speak what is true. Speak what is true.
One of the main things I point to note that I picked the wrong jar of juice. And even though that wasn't truly grape juice, it was a harmonized version of grape juice. I do apologize for that. It was in the refrigerator. They assumed it was grape juice, but actually was something else. But I think I understand. I want to just encourage you tonight to look at the manger for the goodness of God. And begin to recognize that it wasn't a baby born 2,000 years ago. It was God. And his godness had come so that we might be able to receive life from him. So I encourage you to recognize that in the midst of all of the celebrations that we're seeing, there's really a celebration of his day. however, Glenn has now got a big valve in his heart. And when I talked to him yesterday and talked to his father this morning,
Two, three, four. Glory, glory, hallelujah, since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, since I laid my burden down. No more sickness, no more sorrow, since I laid my burden down. No more sickness, no more sorrow, since I laid my burden down. I'm going home to live with Jesus, since I laid my burden down. Going home to live with Jesus, since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah.